Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf, joined by Riley Fessler. Hey, Riley, how are you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, and Minna Stein. Hey, Minna.
Hey, David, how are you?
Yeah. Hey, it's Monday. Great. So happy to be back with the week. Anything happen over the weekend, guys? Any news? Anything to report to these folks, or can they just go off on their merry way, content to know that everything is right in the world?
Everything's definitely right in the world.
Hmm. Yeah, right wing, if that's what you mean. All right. Somebody start a story. Just, let's start us off. We can react to what's going on.
Okay. Legal experts and Democrats are sounding alarms over Trump administration discussions about unilaterally suspending habeas corpus, a fundamental legal right, without congressional approval. White House official Stephen Miller suggested the move is under consideration, prompting sharp backlash from constitutional scholars who note that only Congress, under extreme conditions like rebellion or invasion, can legally suspend the writ. Critics argue the proposal is part of a broader attempt to undermine judicial authority and concentrate unchecked power in the executive branch, drawing comparison to authoritarian tactics.
Comparison? Um, yeah, right. Well, I compare it to authoritarian tactics because it's an authoritarian tactic. And it's outrageous that they would even bring it up. They're saying, well, it's justifiable because there's an invasion. And one of the GOP guys who was on one of the Sunday shows said, yeah, there's an invasion. We have to weigh this kind of thing seriously. There's no invasion, okay? A court has even said it. There's no invasion. There's no war. There's no grounds for this. Uh, it's just an absurd assertion designed to scare people and to inflame whatever kind of bizarre dictatorial fantasy that lives within the mind of Donald Trump or Stephen Miller or whomever. Um, anyway, I don't think it's going to happen, but I do think other violations of people's rights will happen. And I do think other attacks on the courts will take place. And I do think there will be more constitutional crises each and every month, so long as this guy remains the president and the people around him remain in the positions they've got. Riley?
The US and China have agreed to significantly reduce tariffs and enact a 90-day truce in their ongoing trade war to allow time for further negotiations. Both nations will lower tariffs by 115 percentage points, signaling a mutual desire to avoid economic decoupling and embargo level restrictions. The deal, announced in Geneva, boosted global markets, reflecting investor optimism over eased trade tensions. However, analysts and business leaders caution that the truce is temporary and uncertainty remains over whether lasting solutions will be reached.
I mean, I don't even know how to begin to talk about this. Let's break it down. The trade tensions they're talking about were triggered entirely by the United States. The escalation, which Scott Bessent yesterday talked about as though it happened, as a result of the weather, was entirely the choice of the United States. Trump is doing what he has done now for the past 4 months, creating a disaster, realizing it's a disaster, stepping away from the disaster, and asking to be given credit for stepping away from the disaster, even though the post-disaster solution that he is coming up with is much worse than the starting situation was to begin with. And in this particular case, that means during this 90-day period, 30% tariffs on Chinese goods coming into the United States. So is that hugely inflationary given the size of China and the dependency of a lot of companies, but also particularly poorer Americans on Chinese goods? Absolutely. It's incredibly inflationary. And if at the beginning of all of this, Trump had said, we're just going to increase tariffs on China by 30%, the markets would be flipping out. But because of this literal insanity, this insane economic policy, we are saying, oh, we've dodged a bullet. And of course, 90 days, what does 90 days mean? 90 days means we're punting this beyond the extent of the memories of most Americans. And if we have to punt it a few more times and then get to a non-solution that doesn't actually bring any real benefits to the United States, no one will even notice. This is damage control. It's not trade progress. It's a communication strategy. It's not an economic strategy. And the Trump policies leave us much worse off, will slow the economy, will increase inflation, even though they will be celebrating their big, beautiful breakthrough.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio held separate calls with UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, reaffirming the U.S. commitment to ending the war in Ukraine. With Lammy, Rubio also addressed India-Pakistan tensions, urging both nations to uphold the ceasefire and maintain dialogue. In his conversation with Merz, Rubio congratulated him on his new role and emphasized continued U.S.-German cooperation on Ukraine.
But I mean, first of all, the Europeans are like, well, how do we deal with these guys? And, do we, pretend that they're the same U.S. ally that they were before, even though they are, no longer supporting Ukraine in the way that they did? And they're not clear. The Europeans are responding to all of this with kind of, fumbling uncertainty. As far as the India-Pakistan conflict goes, the U.S. got involved at the very end, announced a ceasefire. It wasn't a ceasefire. It was broken immediately and many times. Tensions remain. And all of it follows, a couple days earlier when J.D. Vance said, this is none of our business and we're going to stay out of this. So once again, chaos, unprofessionalism, and the underlying truth of bad U.S. policy, which is to say, we are more supportive of Russia than we are of Ukraine. We are turning our back on our allies. We are making it more likely that Russia has more gains as a result of this war, or more support for the ethno-nationalist, anti-democratic policies of Narendra Modi in India. That's the problem. That problem remains. Marco Rubio, with his 4 big titles in the U.S. government, has one main job. He is the guy with the broom following the elephant in the parade. The elephant poops, Rubio sweeps up the poop. That's his job. That's what he's doing here. Riley.
So to get a little bit more into that, India and Pakistan have agreed to a U.S. brokered ceasefire following 4 days of intense cross-border conflict involving airstrikes and shelling, which left dozens dead on both sides. Military officials from both nations are set to meet to discuss the ceasefire's implementation, as each side remains alert and has warned against further violations. Despite the truce, both countries have claimed military victories and continue to trade accusations over the recent escalation and alleged attacks.
Yeah, and this is not over, and it won't be over anytime soon. And look, it doesn't help that Europe and the United States are both wobbly at the moment. We're not really the kind of leaders that can get together and produce a unified solution or a unified front to push towards a clear solution in anything. And it makes the whole world more dangerous. And that's exactly why this is happening. And, maybe the U.S. could direct an aircraft carrier into the area and push a few of our planes off into the ocean. That seems to be the way we show force these days. We're down 4 fighter planes off of the USS Harry Truman in the battle with the Houthis, which we seem to have declared we've won, but it continues once again to go on. Once again, well, there was a war, but we've solved the war, and isn't that great? Except then the war keeps going. There's a pattern here, folks. Just look at the pattern. Bullshit followed by bad decisions, followed by more bullshit, followed by continuing bad outcomes. That's the news cycle these days. So what's our final story? People can then get out, do what Riley did, go to the beach. If Riley can go to the beach, everybody can go to the beach. So what's the last story?
Qatar denied reports that it is gifting a $400 million luxury jet to President Trump for use as Air Force One, clarifying that while discussions are ongoing with the U.S. Department of Defense, no agreement has been finalized. Despite the denial, U.S. officials confirmed that talks had occurred, prompting sharp criticism from Democrats who accused Trump of violating the Constitution's Emoluments Clause by potentially accepting a foreign gift without congressional approval. The issue has reignited concerns about foreign influence and ethical boundaries surrounding Trump's conduct and his upcoming Middle East visit.
Yeah, and by upcoming you mean like today, right? I mean he's there now, or he's just about to be there. This is the story cycle, and this has been kind of interesting. When you say officials confirmed this, Trump confirmed it. Trump did a Truth social post in which he said, they're giving it to us, and this is great, and Democrats are crazy to be upset by it. He neglected the key part of this. The key part of the deal, as it was revealed over the weekend, was that not only does the plane go to the United States, which parenthetically has plenty of planes and parenthetically approved money for new U.S. 747s for the president, and parenthetically doesn't need a donation from another country. The key point was that then the plane would be transferred to the Trump Presidential Library, essentially for the use of Trump and his family after he ceases to be president. That's the issue here. That it makes it much more of a questionable situation, and it'll be interesting to see whether they, as happens in all these other stories we're talking about, they back away from it. Some of the criticism of this was coming from, devoted supporters of the president, his policy lady love. I don't want to suggest anything else. Laura Loomer, conspiracy theory loving right wing nut job, said, "I'd take a bullet for the president, but I don't like this deal. It doesn't smell good." And so when the right react this way, and the left react this way, and the center react this way, and the media react this way, often they walk these things back. It'll be interesting. Trump will be in Qatar. We'll see how they handle this. Another thing Trump did was he said, well, this has been very transparent. Well, it wasn't transparent until somebody broke the story. Anyway, it's just another one of those stories. And we'll watch it closely because he's going to be in the Middle East this week for a visit to several countries, and we'll report on it each and every day, just as we will, cover all the other news and do our usual array of podcasts. And we've got some really good ones coming up this week and some special ones. And so we'll talk to you about all that as we go forward. But for now, have a good week, everybody. Welcome back from the beach, Riley. And we'll see you around here tomorrow, or if you listen to something else from us later today, soon. Until then, bye-bye.